If you haven't already seen my previous video on how I got into help desk and my overall journey, I'd recommend you watch that first. There's some more insight and context there. The overall gist of that video was a brief overview of my journey and what actually prompted me to get into IT and how I got into help desk and how I landed that interview. It's a pretty good video. So this video is a bit of a sequel to that one, but with more of a focus on the actual certifications part. There are a million resources out there and a million people giving advice on the internet about how to actually study and what certifications to take if you're getting into cyber. I'm not here to give you advice, really. I'm just here to talk about my journey. Everyone's different. Everyone who gets into the space gets here differently. The way that people study and live their lives are very different. So your mileage will absolutely vary, but hopefully I can just give you some inspiration. So after I ultimately decided I wanted to get into IT, I grinded very hard for the following certs. I first started on Comptia ITF Plus. I don't recommend you actually get this cert. It's actually kind of a garbage cert. It's really just there to determine if you want to get into IT in the first place. It tests your very base knowledge on IT and what technology is. It's more so stuff like how does a keyboard interact with the computer? You can type letters. That's pretty much what ITF Plus is. I recommend you just go straight to Comptia A Plus if you're trying to get into IT. That's the perfect cert. It's recognized. It's still entry level and it's still very basic, but it's way more recognized and a little more respected than ITF Plus ever will be. But even so, the reason I even studied for ITF Plus was because I didn't really have the confidence that I knew what I was doing in this space. I knew I wanted to get into it, but I needed the confidence. So I went as base level as I possibly could. And the ITF Plus exam, I believe, costed about $100 to take back in 2023, I believe. I don't remember the exact method I went into studying that exam. I do know I treated it like a full-time job, meaning I spent about 6 to 8 hours every day studying it. At the time, I did not have a full-time job. I lived with my parents still. I had a pretty good side business that I was doing fairly well for what it was. So I used that for my income, but otherwise I didn't have anything else to really do in my day-to-day life. So I had tons of time to actually study and pursue what I wanted to really do, right? Because of the constant grind I spent on my ITF Plus, once I knew what I wanted to do, and I actually put the time in, 6 to 8 hours. I'm not joking. I genuinely sat down. I was so inspired and I was so passionate about this field. Once I knew I wanted to get into this, I spent legitimately that much time every day, or at least every weekday, studying, and I treated this like a full-time job very seriously. Long story short, with ITF Plus, I did pass first try, yippee. It was my first time taking a proctored exam over my webcam and stuff, so that was kind of a unique experience. And as soon as I passed ITF Plus, I realized I actually could do it. I could do it. I passed my first exam, first try. I nailed it. It was awesome. It helped that the concepts that were in that exam I already knew because I built computers before I even touched that exam, right? So again, that exam gave me the confidence to keep going. So from there, I had my sights pointed towards Security Plus, as everyone does, right? The Security Plus exam is the golden starting point for anyone who's wanting to get into cyber, as it's probably the most recognized exam name that I've ever seen. Before I actually tackled that, I did find the Google Cybersecurity certification by Coursera, and this one piqued my interest because I watched a couple of videos on it, and at the very end, the gimmick with this course is that at the very end, you got I believe at the time it was a 30% off discount code for a Security Plus voucher. That's what sold me. I'll go ahead and pull it up here on the screen so you can see here. The Google Cybersecurity Professional Certificate. This is the exact one I got on Coursera. This is the certificate I ended up going for next. The thing with this website is there is a monthly cost aside from the first month, which is why it says enroll for free. I knew I didn't want to invest more money than I had to, and a quick Google search will show you that this course is about 170 hours. It's marketed that it'll take you about 6 months if you learn at 7 hours a week. I knew I was far more capable than that, and I wanted to blast through it, and I did not want to give them the 10, 15 bucks for even just a month if I could help it, because to be honest, these exams are not cheap, as you all know. These are $200, $300, $400 exams, and that's kind of annoying. So I took the same exact methodology that I took with the very baseline ITF Plus. I treated it like a full-time job. I studied about 6 to 8 hours. And this one I took a lot more seriously because I only took this one because A, it was good study material, honestly, and B, because I wanted that discount for the exam voucher. So I ended up completing this cert course in about 29 days. I barely cut it for that discount. 8 times 5, that's about 40 hours a week. You know, you do the math, you can do this in less than a month for sure. Now, I understand that when you have a full-time job, if you're married, if you have kids, it's not that easy. So if 6 months is more your pace, that's 7 hours every week, it's absolutely doable. This is not a proctored exam at all. This is extremely casual. It's beginner level and it's very easy to follow. There's a ton of bloat in it. To be honest, it's a Google course, so it's very professional. There are videos that you watch and it's people in the cybersecurity space, or rather who work at Google, and they kind of explain to you in a nice cheery voice, "Hi, I'm Malik from so-and-so. I do this and this and this. Here's a few concepts." And then they keep going. They give you some nice hands-on activities to do in between modules, and those can be pretty good to do. And they're even good to put on a resume. Like, this course overall is not bad. But again, I just did this for the Security Plus. After I got this course done, I did end up getting that 30% off. Then I knew I was in it for the long run, because Security Plus up to this point is definitely the hardest exam I've taken. I would even argue it's harder than CYSA Plus, but I will get to that in just a minute. So after I took the Google course and I blasted through that 170-hour-ish course, I took a couple days as a breather. I sat on what I already knew and what I had and the notes I took in the meantime, set my sights on Security Plus. Now, the way you study for these kinds of exams, especially Comptia, it's a lot of terminology and it's a lot of acronyms. In my opinion, one of the hardest parts of Security Plus are the dang acronyms. There are so many of them. And if you look through the objectives, there are a million of them. There are a million acronyms that you just have to know what they stand for and what concepts they are. And they're really good to know and they're really important. The amount of information that you have to retain is quite a lot. So you have to be good at retaining that information. So how do you retain all of that information? Everyone's different and everyone does it differently. Here's how I did it. The way I did it at first was Professor Messer. I ended up buying one of his courses on Udemy, and he's not bad. He's actually pretty good, especially if you put the video on 1.5x speed. In my opinion, there's a lot of bloat there too. Professor Messer, he talks about the concepts and then he goes into a lot of detail as to what they are. That detail is really awesome. It's educational. All you really have to know about things for the Security Plus exam is know the word, know the definition, and just know the vague concept behind it and then move on. That's really all that you need to do. And that's the most efficient way to understand these things if your goal is to simply pass that exam. So my way of studying for this exam shifted about halfway through. But at first, here's what I did. While I was watching these Messer videos on Udemy, I was taking notes, and I used Google Docs as my tool of doing so. I have a ton of notes regarding phishing, an email or web page that appears identical to a legitimate source, and then I went into a lot of details about the types of phishing, dumpster diving, impersonation, all the way down. I mean, I have 28 pages of this stuff. A couple of interesting graphs here. At the time, I did not really know how to take these notes, because taking notes is kind of a skill in itself. You're wasting time if you're typing things like, "Sometimes this is not intentional." Like this, I did not need to notate this. I did not need to notate constant random bits or data sent at random times about the idea of wireless jamming. I'm really over explaining here, but in my defense, I didn't know how to take notes. I was just taking notes because I knew that this was the thing that you're supposed to do. And I continued to do this for 28 pages, and all of this was simply section 1. All of this was simply for section 1.0. This is ridiculous. The best way to really take notes is to simply notate things that you do not already know. And in sections 1.0 and 2.0, I have a 2.0 section here also with the same 20-ish pages. I took down a lot of notes and a lot of word vomit that I just did not need to, and that took up a lot of time. And to be fair, part of it was because I did not really know how much I needed to know going into this exam. I figured that they were as in-depth as what I was being taught, so I tried to retain everything. The good news is, that's not the case. You only have to really know these vague concepts as well as the terms and their definitions. For example, monolithic applications, what is that? One big app that does everything. Boom. Move on. What is an API? It's an application programming interface. It's the glue for microservices. It's scalable. Boom, go. So I was doing this for a long time until I started to experiment with other methods. I realized that this was taking a really long time. When I started to watch other YouTube videos on how to study, some of the common advice was that Security Plus was a mile wide and an inch deep. So you don't really need to know everything about everything. You just need to know a little bit about everything. And that little bit ends up being the term, the definition, the vague concept. That's it. I started to kind of skim through the rest of the study material and realize and kind of think, do I need to really take this many in-depth notes for every section in the exam? One of my favorite websites to this day to take practice exams, Exam Compass. This one, in my opinion, is one of the best ones. This has been updated for the latest version of Security Plus. At the time, I believe I took my Security Plus in 2023. And this is fantastic because you have 24 practice tests right here at your disposal. And something they did not have back when I took this exam, they have 10 additional acronyms quizzes. That is a game changer because you will need that. Acronyms are the hardest part of this exam by far. And ultimately, what I did after those 2 modules for Professor Messer, I started spamming these. I spammed these practice exams over and over and over again. I took the same ones multiple times and I made sure I took all of them. Take all 24. Multiple times. The way I did it was I did not consider myself ready until I got an average of 80% on all 24 practice exams. That's very important. If you have an average of 50 or 60 on all of these, be very careful because you might not be ready. This exam covers so much material. It legitimately is a mile wide and an inch deep. Keep that in mind. So you can't really blast through the Security Plus exam like I did with the Google Cybersecurity course. That one is a naturally very easy and a more non-serious certificate. It's still good to put on your LinkedIn, on your social media, on your resume even, because I did all of those things. But the Security Plus is definitely an exam not to really play around with, especially if you're kind of short on money. These exams are not cheap. All of these practice exams that you do and you get some of the questions wrong, those are the notes that you should be taking. Take notes of the things you simply do not know. That's how I found myself becoming a lot more efficient and I started to retain things faster. Once you already know something, you already know it. I took this time to study for about 2 to 3 months, really hard. I buckled down. Maybe you're better at retaining information than I do, but the best way I do it is I hunker down and I hammer my brain with the same information multiple times. And as someone who operates like that, it's just way easier to only notate things that you already know. So I'm telling you right now, as a sign, the Security Plus exam, it does not ask you to understand things at a very in-depth level. Know the term, know the definition, know the vague concept, move on. That's really it. That goes for the acronyms too. The feeling I got after passing that exam was ecstatic. The Security Plus exam was a foundational certification more than anything else I had taken up to that point. After that, I took the natural path that all of the YouTubers say to take, and that was to take the CYSA Plus. That certification is actually the latest cert that I personally have. And because of my experimentation with how I studied for Security Plus, I was a lot more efficient with CYSA Plus. And it helps because CYSA Plus has a lot of shared material between that and Security Plus. CYSA is a little bit more specialized. There is some new information in CYSA Plus. It's not as wide as Security Plus is, but it is still kind of wide. It covers everything that you would need to know as a security analyst, specifically with security practices, tools, sim tools, all that junk, and a lot of concepts in a lot of different environments. You have to know all of it, but to be honest, a lot of that you're also covered in Security Plus being so broad. So I mean, yeah, it's a lot of shared material. Don't forget CYSA Plus. I treated the same exact way I did with ITF Plus, with the Google course, and with Security Plus. At the time, I was not employed. However, I was also applying to a butt ton of jobs during this time. At this point in time, my time was split between applying to a ton of jobs and then studying for CYSA Plus. But the good news was I knew how to study a lot more efficiently. So I actually spent less time studying for CYSA Plus than I did for the Security Plus, and I passed it. If some random dork who suddenly believed that he could do it, did it, so can you. So where am I now? Well, all of those exams I just listed off, I still have. I have not gotten any more since. And the last exam I took, which was my CYSA Plus, I took back in April of 2024. September of that year, I got employed on service desk, and I've been there since. I'm there now. My next certification I'm probably going to go for is my CCNA. That is a really strong networking cert, and that one is going to help you in pretty much any IT field ever. But I am going to see how the future holds, and if and when I do study for that, I will keep you up to date on what that is like. This kind of delves into the self-help, self-improvement side of things, but studying for certifications, you kind of have to treat it the same way that you're building a business or something. It is a grind, it takes some commitment, It is not easy. In my opinion, it takes having a relentless routine. You have to be so iron-willed to just get it done. And that in itself is a discipline that we all just have to build. So I hope me yapping kind of helped you out. If you're studying for some certs, let me know in the comments below. Watch this video. I talked about why you should build a home lab. That's really important. I think home labs are awesome and really good for resume building also. Take care, guys. Peace out.